Rumors are flying in regard to the Pete Alonso market. A surprising DH candidate may just be available for the New York Mets, and a starting pitching market may be collapsing, which may lead to the New York Mets landing an ace. Next on MetCast. Welcome back to MetCast, friends. As always, I am Rain. If you like our content, we kindly ask you to like and subscribe, but let's get right into it. Rumors are now starting to swirl in regard to the Mets, Pete Alonso, the Christian Walker, maybe moving Vientos over to first base. A lot of those rumors have been around, but the latest heat is that Pete Alonso is asking for a crazy abomination of a contract, and it doesn't look like anyone's really engaging with him. And let's not forget what happened just last year in regard to two of Scott Boras's clients. We had Blake Snell settle for a one-year contract and Jordan Montgomery, two guys that got screwed over by their agent Scott Boras because he asks for the absolute world. It is now looking as though Pete Alonso maybe should have just taken that 6-year contract offer that was supposedly given to him prior to this last season. But we have this new video from SNY, the guys over there, Sal Licata and the boys, talking about the New York Mets potential lineup, what it could look like with and without Pete Alonso. And I'm going to get to a DH that I think the Mets should absolutely target. And it's probably one of the primary reasons I think the New York Mets are attempting to trade off Starling Marte, maybe eat some of his contract. But let's get to the video.
Is it anyway? Here's what my Mets lineup would look like right now with some notable holes to fill here. Lindor would be atop the order, of course, at short. I would go Vientos number 2.
I actually love that. I would prefer to have Vientos number 2 the more I think about it. I always thought that maybe Mark Vientos would be the kind of player that's going to hit behind Juan Soto because Juan Soto takes so many pitches, would be on base. But think about this. If Lindor gets on the way that he was getting on last year, Vientos starts hitting doubles and home runs and getting on base the way he was last year, you have now your best bat and Soto up with potentially two guys on and maybe Pete Alonso hitting behind him. So the last thing you want to do is load the bases for Pete Alonso. And then if Brandon Nimmo has a bounce back year, which I totally expect, it's an anomaly on his baseball card. Just go look at the stats. And if we could get that next step progression from Francisco Alvarez, it totally completely changes this lineup. And the DH that I want the Mets to pursue would probably hit right behind Pete Alonso. Let's keep listening.
In front of Soto, hitting third. I love the lefty-righty balance there. Of course, gaping hole number 4. Looks like somebody might fit there perfectly. Pete Alonso, I don't know. Nimmo, Alvarez, another spot to me. I would not have Starling Marte at DH. I think the Mets need a DH, preferably a lefty bat, maybe John Peterson, I don't know. Siri, and then either McNeil or Acuna. But clearly some gaping holes right there. And is Pete Alonso still the best option to protect Juan Soto in that lineup? Mets need that. Is he still the best option?
Sal, I'm all in on Alonso returning, to be
I am too right now.
Quite honest.
On a short-term deal.
Obviously one of the premier sluggers in the game. And look, I feel like we've been talking a lot about Met chemistry since the offseason started, about how can they grab again the quicksilver that, sort of propelled 2024 to be such a great year for them. And why not bring back a guy who's going to help on the field with the big power and a guy who was part of that clubhouse? And Alonso is that person. Look, chemistry, it's undefinable in so many ways, but I feel like if you bring back a guy who is going to be a good player and is going to hit bombs here for the Mets, is the way to go here. Looking at your lineup.
Yeah.
They signed one of the best offensive players in maybe baseball history, and they still need a lot of work there. So Alonso,
100%. Think about that. That's how you know things are coming down the pike, Met fans. There's no way Juan Soto is signing on the dotted line without promises being made to go for a year in and year out. He's not going to waste the prime years of his career.
Alonso is a nice piece right away.
A lot of work might be a little bit of a stretch, but at least
you got him a DH. You got him a DH.
One significant at bat. Clearly, they need that one significant bat. Zach, what's the market like right now for Alonso?
I mean, it seems really quiet. You don't hear a whole lot about it. When I look at the market, I look at the teams that he fits with. Obviously, the Mets are a great fit. I see maybe Seattle, San Francisco, but There's not a whole lot out there. There could be some teams that get creative later. I think he needs some players to come off the board, some of the guys that are in a tier higher than like Bregman and Burns, just to kind of see where the dust settles, whether there's more interest in him. But, it's going to be hard for him to top what he had on the table from the Mets before. And I think if he comes back to the Mets, it's probably that they're waiting him out a little bit until his market comes down. I'm not sure it makes sense to give a player with that profile a long-term deal, but maybe it gets shorter as time goes on.
Yeah, it's just the obvious.
Could Pete Alonso potentially sign for a 4-year, say, instead of 6 years, you give him 4-year, $110 million? I mean, it's a lot of money, but if you could get Alonso for 4 years, 30, 31, 32, 33, and then say sayonara, that'd be best case scenario. But Scott Boras is allegedly pushing for a 7 or 8 year contract. I don't see any team in their right mind giving him that contract.
Need, Keith, forget about first base, which is the position that they happen to need filled, but they need protection behind Juan Soto. What would you do for first base?
Yeah, if the Mets can't figure out if Pete Alonso is the guy coming back, if Pete's market gets a little too high, what do? I like Christian Walker a lot.
I like Christian Walker too, but I have a lot of questions about him, and I'll let you know after this.
I mean, I know that maybe he's not the biggest, brightest name. He is a lot of power in that bat. He's a little bit older. He's also probably the best defensive first baseman in the game, and that would fit right in. You always want to bring in more gloves behind you, helps your pitching staff, helps everything, but also would be a short-term deal, probably 2 years, maybe 3, and then you can move on to guys that you have coming up in the infield with maybe Ryan Clifford, who came over in the Justin Verlander deal. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility if they can't sign Pete, because I know Pete's going to want a lot of money in free agency. You overpay.
Now that's what we have in regard to that. Here's the deal. Christian Walker, I like him a lot. In fact, I think he's a better player than Pete Alonso. And I'm going to show you right now why. I mean, we could look at the players up and down, but at the end of the day, here's Christian Walker. Without a doubt, he's a better player. Look at those OPSs. Very similar to Pete Alonso last year, 803, I believe. Pete's was in the upper 770, 778, right around there. But 830, 804. My issue is with Walker is he's already 34. And with big guys like this, usually the decline is extremely steep. Now, if you're telling me you're getting Walker on a 2 to 3 year deal, yeah, I'd probably make that move. Because one thing that he is that Alonso is not, he is a spectacular first baseman. Spectacular, and I'm talking defensively. Now, if you have a guy like Vientos over at third, bouncing balls, throwing it all over the place, a guy like Christian Walker could be very useful. And I understand Pete's pick percentage last year was pretty dang good, but Walker is on an absolute another level. Now to the player that I really want the Mets to pursue, Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson needs to be this team's DH. The heavy lefty bat. He's strictly a DH at this point in his career. He's played around like 38 games or so since 2022 in the outfield. But I mean, look at this OPS when he's a full-time DH with Arizona last year. 908, 275, 23 home runs. He had 17 doubles and a triple. The guy was an absolute machine last year. Look at that on-base percentage. 393 on-base percentage. 55 walks and 449 plate appearance, which ended up being 367 at-bats. He is the DH that we need to bring in here. Now extend that lineup that we were talking about. Lindor, Vientos, Alonso, Jock, then Brandon Nimmo, or maybe you move Nimmo to the 9 hole and you move Alvarez up so you don't have that back-to-back lefty. There's always those options there, but that would be an absolute stacked lineup, in my opinion. Now, there's another thing that I want to get to, and this was part of what I initially spoke about in my intro, and here you have it. Corbin Burnes. Now, there's rumors floating around. This was tweeted out by Robbie Hyde, and this is in regard to Ken Rosenthal alluding to in the Fair Territory podcast that Corbin Burnes may entertain a Max Scherzer type deal. Am I a believer in it? Probably not. But if you're telling me right now you could get Corbin Burnes, say, on a 3-year, $105 million contract, I am all over that. All over that. That's the kind of move that helps you win a World Series. He is a legitimate ace-type pitcher in our rotation. Right to number one. Right to number one. Him, Senga, Peterson. You could roll with that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I would love to know your lineup configurations. Who do you see coming in as our DH? Do you like what I have to say, or do you have your own configuration? I love interacting with you guys. Corbin Burnes is a must get. If you find out, or if I find out that he's signed for 3 years somewhere else, I'll actually probably be pretty upset, even if it's with the Giants, because at the end of the day, Steve Cohen has the most resources there is in Major League Baseball, and there's not even a close second in my opinion. And there's no way they told Juan Soto, yeah, come play for us, but we're not going to surround you with the best talent available. Again, the Mets have an elite farm system. Maybe they view Drew Gilbert, who should be up this year at age 24, as a potential center fielder. And by the way, friends, if you haven't already, go take a peek at what Luis Angel Acuna is doing right now in Winter Ball. You might be stunned. Probably the MVP. One thing that worries me a lot about the Winter Ball, Jose Siri's hitting in like the 170s. He hit in the 180s last year in Major League Baseball. He's going to find his way right to free agency very quickly, because regardless of how good your defense is, you cannot be hitting under 220 in the major leagues on a World Series roster. There's no World Series team that's a center fielder that hits 170. If there is, let me know who it is, because I would love to see it. But we're going to continue to monitor the news as always. Thank you so much for hanging out. And again, if you would like and subscribe, that would do us great things for us. The channel's moving along. Thanks so much for hanging out. And as the Mets content trickles in, we'll be sure to bring it to you. Until next time, take care.